So how do you and I receive a return on failure? Number one, keep failure and success together. This is very important. I have had for 40 years what I call learning lunches. Now, a learning lunch is where I sit down with somebody, I take them to lunch, I buy their lunch. And this person I take out, they're better than me, bigger than me, faster than me, smarter than me, more successful than me. And I'm having the lunch to learn from them. I want them to teach me. So we go to a nice restaurant and I buy their lunch. I don't even eat lunch. I just literally take notes and ask questions. And I ask 7 questions, and I just find that the questions I ask do be very helpful in helping me to grow and learn and improve my life because of the person that I'm having lunch with. So, one of the questions I ask that just is so helpful is I look at them and I ask, talk to me about what's the most important lesson that you've ever learned in your life. And they began to talk to me about some very important lesson they learned in life. And now that I've had hundreds of these lunches with hundreds of different people, I have come to a startling conclusion. Every time I ask a person, what's the most important lesson you've ever learned in your life? They always tell me about something they've learned that includes a failure in their life. There was a loss. I don't know, maybe there was the death of a loved one, or perhaps it was the breakup of a marriage. Maybe, maybe they went bankrupt in their business. But they always talk about a loss, a problem, a miss, a failure, a mistake. And every time when I say, what's the most important lessons you ever learned in your life? They talk about some failure that they've had and how they learned from that failure and how they overcame that failure. Now, this is huge. So as I review all the questions I've asked about important lessons, and here are the answers which include some kind of a loss, some kind of a failure, I have come to the conclusion, if you want to return on your failure, you need to keep failure and success right together. They belong together. But what do? We separate them. We put success over here, and we put failure way over here, and we tell people now really succeed, be successful. And, don't fail. Okay, do it right. And we separate success and failure. And that's not the way life is. Nobody has ever looked at you in their life and said, for several years, all I did was succeed. And then for a few years, all I did was ever fail. No one lives a life where success and failure are separated, and yet that's exactly what we're taught to do. I'm saying, forget it, put them back together. Keep success and failure together. They belong together. They need each other. Let me explain. Bill Gates is the one who said success is a lousy teacher. It causes people to think they can't lose. What he was basically saying is, you show me success without failure, and I'll show you a person that's in trouble. So, we need to keep success and failure together because let's say, for example, I'm just on a success roll and I'm just hitting the ball and doing really good and I'm succeeding. I need to keep failure close to me. I need to remember what failure looks like. I need to embrace failure when it happens during my role of success. I need to keep failure close to me because in my success, if I remember my failures, it teaches me humility. And humility is the number one quality needed in a leader's life because humility makes me teachable, makes you teachable. When we're humble, we don't think we have all the answers. There's a lack of arrogance in our life and this kind of been there, done that mindset that's not healthy at all. So in my success, I need to keep failure close because it teaches me humility. And when I'm failing a lot, it's just not, I'm in the ditch. I'm not having a lot of good days right now. When I'm failing, I need to keep success close to my failures, because when I remember my successes, it gives me resiliency. And resilience allows me to pick myself up and get out of that ditch and get back on the road and do it again. So I encourage you, you gotta keep them together. If you want to return on your failure, keep success and failure together. That's number one. Number two, if you want to get a return on your failure, number two, understand the difference between good misses and bad misses, because there is a difference. And I don't want you to miss this. Again, I'm just writing this as I teach it, and so I'm still learning myself and growing myself. But here's what I know. There's such a thing as a good miss, and there's such a thing as a bad miss. That's why in my book on failing forward, why did I call it failing forward? What I was doing is I was giving you a picture of a good miss. Yes, I didn't hit it, but I failed forward. I got a little closer to it. Just like a bad miss would be failing backward. Now I'm further from my goal than I ever had imagined. So I have to understand the difference between a good miss and a bad miss, because good misses are good. And it's possible for me to have several good misses until I really get close enough to get that hit and succeed the way that I want to. It's never possible for me to have bad misses and finally succeed. So I've got to know the difference, understand them, embrace the good misses, get rid of the bad misses. Let me explain to you just what I mean when I say good miss, bad miss. Okay, here's a good miss. I tried something and it didn't work, but I learned from it, and so I made adjustments. You see, in good misses, I make adjustments. I make corrections. I tweak it. I have a wonderful friend, Tom Watson, who was one of the 10 greatest golfers ever, and we were playing golf one day, and Tom has won, I think, over 50 PGA tournaments. He said, John, there are only 5 tournaments that I won that on Thursday when the tournament began, it goes 4 days through Sunday. There were only 5 tournaments that I won that on day one I just thought, I'm going to win. My swing is so smooth, it's so grooved, my game is so at the top of what I should be. I'm going to win. He said all the rest of my wins, by vast the majority of them, 90% of them, I had to adjust my swing during the tournament. Something went wrong, and all of a sudden I wasn't smooth, and I was not I just wouldn't, and I'd have to go to the practice. I'd have to go to the practice range after I played all day, and I'd have to work on my swing. He said, in most of my victories, I adjusted myself to victory. I had to make corrections. I had to make some improvements. I had to tweak myself. You see, a good miss is when I make adjustments. Now, hang on. And a bad miss is when I make excuses. Yeah, that's bad miss. Wow. When I start making excuses for why I haven't, couldn't, shouldn't, didn't, I'm in trouble. And by the way, a real good excuse is a real bad excuse. You know that, don't you? That when you have a good excuse by why you haven't done something, it's so good you believe it and you accept it, and other people believe it and they accept it. So now you live in the world of excuses instead of adjustments, and you make a series of bad misses because you're excusing yourself all this time instead of adjusting yourself. So let me see if I can do a decent job teaching you about good misses, bad misses, and the whole process. Portia Nelson wrote a beautiful piece. I'm going to read it to you. It's going to take me 2 minutes, called Autobiography in 5 Short Chapters. And I'm convinced that Portia Nelson really understood the difference between a good miss and a bad miss. So let me read it to you. And as I read it to you, ask yourself at the end of each little chapter, was that a good miss or was that a bad miss? Here we go. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Now, question. Is that a good miss or is that a bad miss? Now, let me help you. Let me give you a hint. Whenever you have your first failure, you don't know whether it was a good miss or bad miss immediately, because it's going to be your response to the failure that's going to determine if it was a good or if it was a bad miss. So chapter 1, we just know that there was a loss, a failure, a miss, but we're not sure whether it was good or bad. So let's go to chapter 2. Chapter 2, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Was that a good miss or is that a bad miss? Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. And I get out immediately. Good miss. Bad miss. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Good miss. Bad miss. Chapter 5. I walk down another street. That's a good miss. It's a good miss because a change happened. An adjustment was made. I walk down another street. Elon Musk said the difference in a startup that is successful and one that is not is that the successful startup recognizes mistakes and fixes them quickly, and the unsuccessful one tries to avoid mistakes altogether. So, if you want to get a return on your failure, we've learned two things already. We've learned that we're to understand the differences between good misses and bad misses, that we're to keep failure and success together. Let's go to number 3. If you want to return on your failure, embrace hard. Embrace hard. There's a book I would encourage you to read. It's a classic book. It's written by psychiatrist Scott Peck. It's called The Road Less Traveled. Literally, when I was young, I read this book and it had a profound impression upon my life. In the book, The Road Less Traveled, Scott Peck opens up the book with this sentence. In fact, the first 3 words describe the book. Here's what he says. Life is difficult. Scott Peck says that this is one of the greatest truths that we can ever learn, that life is difficult. And he says also, if we learn that life is difficult and we embrace it, he said, what we'll discover is we live much more effectively. In fact, what we discover is once we embrace that life is difficult, it's not as difficult. Why is it not as difficult? Because we now have embraced that this is the way life is. The way I explain it to people all the time is I use this visual. Everything worthwhile is uphill. Everything. All of your dreams, they're uphill. There is no such thing as you having a downhill dream. If you're trying to build a business, it's all uphill. There's never been such a thing as coasting your way to success. There's never been a book written on accidental accomplishment. Everything worthwhile is uphill. It's all uphill. Wow. Embrace hard. That's why we need to be intentional. The only way that you climb uphill is to be intentional in climbing. You didn't accidentally get there. So to receive a return on failure, one of the most important things we can do is just basically say, life is hard. And the moment that we embrace hard and know that life is difficult, we expect losses, we expect misses, we expect failures. Of course we do. I do, you do, we all do. When I was in Milan with you, I shared with you that a cute little story. I was teaching a leadership conference one day, and a couple thousand people were there, and they paid a lot of money to come, and there was a lot of laughter. It was just a great environment. And it's the afternoon break, and I'm signing books, a long line, and I'm meeting people. And this kid comes up to me, all excited. And he said, I love this seminar. I love what's happening. He said, I made a decision. I said, well, what is it? He said, I decided I want to do what you do. I said, I love that. Congratulations. Congratulations. He is just on cloud nine. I looked at him. I said, do you mind if I asked you a question? He said, no, not at all. I said, I got it that you'd like to do what I do. I got that. The question is, would you like to do what I did so you can do what I do? You see me today with success, but there's been an awful lot of failures and losses and misses and practices. I wasn't this good in the beginning. Would you like to do what I did? People, when I talk about communication, they say, John, you're such an incredible communicator. Well, I think I am, but let me ask you a question. How many times do you have to be a great communicator before you're a great communicator? I mean, I didn't become a great communicator the first time I tried this. I've spoken over 13,000 times. Think about it. If I can't communicate effectively after 13,000 times, I'm in deep weeds. I chose the wrong profession. You see, today I can communicate with ease and people love it. But I've done it 13,000 times. You see, I know you want to do what I do, but do you want to did the 13,000 times? That's the question. My books have sold millions and millions and millions of copies. But I didn't even have a bestseller until my 16th book. I had to write 15 books before I got a bestseller. I know you'd like to be a bestseller. I got that. I know you want to do what I do, but would you like to do what I did? I wrote an awful lot of words before I became a bestseller. You see, the did is the problem. We all want to do what great people do, but we don't want to did what great people did so that they could do what they do. You see, and if you don't do the did, in America, I tell people all the time, if you don't do the did, you're in deep doo-doo. That's a fact. So if you want to return on failure, you want to keep failure and success together, you want to understand the difference between a good miss and a bad miss, and you want to just embrace hard because life is hard. There's nothing easy about life. Once you accept that, though, life becomes easier. Number 4, if you want to be highly successful, you need to anticipate failure. Now that sounds negative. That's kind of a downer. Wow, I mean, John, what do you mean? I have to anticipate failure. That's kind of a negative way to live your life. No, I don't mean that at all. What I want you to know is if you're going to do anything great, you're going to have a lot of failure. It comes with the package. So you anticipate failure not with a spirit of dread. You anticipate failure with a spirit of reality. It's just going to happen. And what happens is anticipation influences preparation. And the value of anticipating failure is it gets us ready for potential failures. When I wrote the book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, it became a bestseller immediately. We did a book tour in America. We had a plane, and we literally spoke at 3 different cities every day for a week. So we did 21 cities in a week talking about the 21 laws. And so we started on the East Coast, and we worked our way clear out to California, the West Coast. We were flying back after that book tour, and we were coming into Atlanta. And as the plane was getting ready to land, we were about 50 feet from above the runway. We hit a wind shear, and the plane just dropped immediately to the runway. And when we touched down at the runway, I knew we were in trouble because we didn't touch down straight. We touched down sideways, and I knew that that plane was going to flip. But what was amazing is the moment we touched down wrong, that pilot put the nose of that plane back up in the air, and we got back up in the air. Wow, so close. And we circled the field a couple times. We came down, landed safely. When I got off the plane, I kissed the ground. And when the pilot got off the plane, I kissed the pilot. And I said, that was amazing. Wow, that was incredible. How did you do that? How did you get that plane so quickly? How did you make that decision to get that plane up in the air so quickly? And here's what he said. I didn't make that decision quickly. I made that decision 20 years ago. He said, when I decided to become a pilot, I asked myself, what could go wrong when I fly? And I listed all the problems that you could have in a plane, and with every anticipated failure and problem, I put out an answer of how I would handle that situation. What am I going to do? What am I going to do if the plane hits wrong on the runway? Well, I'm going to get the plane back up in the air because there's a lot more give and take in the air than there is on the ground. Oh, of course there is. Hello? You see, he anticipated the failure, and that in itself allowed him to make that decision. There's something incredible about us anticipating the possibility of losses and misses that allows us to really improve and get better. Let me explain it this way. I have a passion. You could call it a bucket list. I would like to see transformation happen in a country, and I'd like to be catalytic in seeing that happen. Now, that isn't going to be easy. It hasn't happened for a couple hundred years, but I believe it can happen. So through our nonprofit organization, Equip and the John Maxwell Leadership Foundation, we go into countries to teach good values in small groups in order to help people learn those good values, live those good values, and become more valuable to themselves and others, and therefore bring transformation to their home, their family, their community, and who knows, maybe their country. So when I talk to people about my bucket list of seeing in my lifetime, through the efforts of our players, our team, a country transformed, they look at me and say, wow, that's a huge goal. Do you think it'll happen? And I think what I say to them really surprises them. I look at them and say, well, I want it to happen, but I'm not certain it will. And then they kind of sit back and thought, wow, you're taking a journey, trying to do something that you may not even be able to accomplish. And I tell them, that's okay. That doesn't bother me because I'm trying to accomplish something really big. So what I've done is I do what I call mental preparation for a project that is huge. And the mental preparation consists of me thinking and committing to do 3 things. First of all, I will keep moving. When I'm in a big project and things aren't going well, the tendency for people to do is to quit. When COVID happened, what had happened? Everybody stopped. What's happening? How long will this last? What does this mean to me? The tendency is whenever we're into something, quote, over our heads, we have a tendency to stop. But I said, no, I will keep moving. And the reason I will keep moving is there's such a thing as action attraction. And action attraction simply says, if I am taking action, if I am moving on my purpose and my mission in life, it's in my movement that I attract people and resources and opportunities to me. It's not while I'm stopped. Opportunities don't come to a person that's not moving. It's action attraction. So because I anticipate failure in a big project, I've made a choice, a conscious choice to keep moving. And I not only made that conscious choice to keep moving, I've made the conscious choice that I will keep adjusting. As I learn what doesn't work, I'm not going to stop. I just adjust myself. I do what Tom Watson does. I adjust my way to victory. I wrote a book a few years ago called Leader Shift. It was a very popular book, and very popular, especially during COVID, because it's all about pivoting. How do you pivot? How do you adjust? How do you turn? How do you change? Wow. Those are great questions. So I've made a decision, again, because I anticipate in the projects that are so big that there'll be a great amount of losses and misses and failures. So I've made the mental preparation. I will keep moving and I will keep adjusting. And thirdly, I will keep believing. Even when other people, they don't believe in me, that's okay. In fact, let me say to them, you don't have to believe in me, but you have to believe that I believe in me. And that's the key. To get a return on failure, you just have to overcome a lot, but that's okay, because in the process of overcoming a lot, adjusting, I will keep moving, I'll keep adjusting, I'll keep believing, you finally have a breakthrough. To receive a return on failure, number 5, encourage others with your failures. Earlier in this teaching, I talked about writing the book Failing Forward, and my wife, halfway off of the ship, looking and saying, I love the book because you're so candid about your failures. She said they're going to identify with you. And here's what I have discovered. I have discovered that is very true. If you want to impress people, talk about your success. But if you want to impact people, talk about your failures. I learned this when I was a very young leader. I was speaking at a conference, and it was a 2-day conference, and there were 4 speakers. Each speaker had a half a day each. I happened to be the last speaker on the second day. And the first speaker got up, and he did a great job, but really all he talked about was all the things he had done successfully. And so everybody was kind of encouraged by his success, and, we gave him a good hand. And that afternoon, the second guy in his business, he talked about all his success too. And wow, I thought, we've had an awful lot of success today. Surely those guys have had some losses and some misses, but they never talked about it. Well, the next morning, the third guy got up, and honestly, he did the same thing. He just talked about all the good stuff he had done. And by this time, I couldn't even handle the conference. I mean, I'm discouraged because these guys were so good. I thought, I'm never going to be able to reach them. I'm never going to be able to get there. They're perfect. So I excused myself at lunch, and I went to a side room, and I got my legal pad and my 4-color pen out. And I decided to change my lesson that afternoon. And sure enough, I got up and I looked at everybody and said, I am completely successed out. I can't handle any more success. I mean, okay, we got success down. But I just want you to know, I'm known for my success, but I would like to talk to you about my failures. I'd like to pull back the curtain, and I would like to show you how hard success is, and how long it takes, and how many misses I have before I finally get there. And I did a lesson that day called Flops, Failures, and Fumbles. Just all the flops I've made, the failures I've created, the fumbles that I've had. And by the time I finished that lecture, the people were on their feet. They were giving me a standing ovation. They embraced me. They embraced the message. And as a kid, how old have I been? I've been about 28. I looked at this audience of people, of leaders, and I thought to myself, I greatly encourage them by being honest, by saying to them, it isn't always easy and I don't always do it right. And I came off of that stage that day and I said to myself, I'm always going to talk about my misses and my losses and my failures. I guess that's why I've written books on it. I guess that's why I'm talking about it with you today. Because that's when I learned you impact people when you talk about your failures. You impress them if you talk about your successes. And I don't want to create a gap between me and you. You see, if there was such a thing as a genie in a bottle, and she came out and she looked at you and she looked at me and said, you can have one wish, what would it be? I know what my wish would be. I really do. If Jeannie appeared to me and said, hey, John, you get one wish, what would it be? I would look at her and I would say, I wish people could see me, not at 75 like I am right now. I wish people could have seen me at 25. When I was a young leader, when I didn't have all the answers, when I didn't have a smooth delivery, and when I hadn't written any books yet. I wish you could have seen me when I started, because I wasn't any good. And I'm not trying to be humble. I have a teaching that is very popular that basically says you're never good the first time. And they love that because it's true. We're not good the first time. When somebody says, well, I've never done it before, so I'm really working hard so I can do a great job, I tell them, oh, relax. You're not going to do that good. It's the first time. When you were a little child and you started to walk, you weren't good the first time. You took 2 steps and fell down. When you started to talk, you didn't talk in sentences. You said words that only your grandparents could understand. We're never good the first time. And what I wish you could see, you see me now on the end where I've compounded success in my life. But if you could have seen me on the front end, listen, if you could have seen me at 25, every one of you would be greatly encouraged. Trust me. You'd say, oh my gosh, he wasn't very good. Look at him now. That's what I don't want you to miss. It's what I teach in the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, the law of process. Leaders develop daily, not in a day. It's just important for you to realize. It takes time. Okay, one more thought on how to receive a return on failure. Again, performance strategies. Thanks so much for allowing me to share with the people, and you're such a wonderful group of people and such a good company. Thanks for letting me be a part of it. And thanks for allowing me to teach you today. To get a return on failure, the last thing, number 6, it's very simple. Understand that the right response to failure will give you your greatest benefits. When I respond to failure correctly, that's when the return begins to be huge. And here's why. A right response to failure will bring humility in my life, which keeps me teachable. And it will give me character, which will make me strong. Give a great core on the inside of my life. I don't want you to miss this. This is such an important part of the lesson. So just give me another minute and we'll be done. I was in one of my companies having an executive circle call one day. An executive circle call is basically I talked to a CEO on the phone. This was before Zoom days. And other executives joined the call with me. And for 20 minutes, the executive that's the speaker gives us best practices, the things that they're doing well in the company. And then I break those best practices down and apply it to the other executives and do a little leadership teaching. And then I ask maybe a couple of questions. And then I open the lines so all these executives can ask the keynote speaker some questions. So this was a very successful CEO, and he had been very open and honest about the fact that he had built a great company, but that in the meantime, he'd made a lot of mistakes and had a lot of misses, like everyone. And so it was a wonderful talk, and when it was over, I gave some leadership application. Then I asked him, I said, as you look back at all the losses and the misses that you had in your life, which ones would you want to go back and do over? I mean, okay, let's say I said, okay, you have the power, go back and you can fix that bad decision. You can change that behavior right there. I said, which ones would you go back and do over? And his answer surprised me greatly. He said, John, I wouldn't go back and do over any of my failures and losses. I said, you're kidding me. He said, no, not at all. I said, you have to talk to me for a moment. And this is what he said. I've had a lot of mistakes, had a lot of failures. I had a lot of things that I could do over, but I choose not to for this reason. The failures that I've had, the losses that I've incurred, they taught me so much. I have learned my most important lessons from the losses and failures of my life. And today, what I know, the wisdom that I have, the character that I have within me, those losses, John, those mistakes, those failures have given me a character and a wisdom that if I wouldn't have made the mistakes and had the failures, I wouldn't have today. So I don't want to do any of them over, because the lessons I learned and the character that I developed and the humility that I have are more important than going back and doing them over. If I would do them over, I would lose the lessons, and I don't want to lose them. Well, that day I hung up the phone with the other executives in the circle, and we looked at each other and we knew one thing. We knew that CEO knew how to get a return on failure. It was his response to failure that gave him his highest return. In this lesson, I've given you 6 ways to get a return on your failure, but don't forget the last one. It will make you the person you really should and want to become.